Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In this video I am going to show demo about designing schedule list UI in .NET MAUI application. So here on the click of this dashboard icon, I am just going to display weekdays in the left panel, and based on the selection of weekdays it's just going to filter the schedule list, and also user can select a date from this date option. Okay, so let's go through it. Okay, now let me add these icons here in .NET MAUI application. So I'm just going to add icons in resources images folder. Okay, now I'm just going to add views, view model and models folder. Okay, so here in the views I'm just going to add schedule list page, so .NET MAUI content page. And for schedule list view, here in a view models folder I'm just going to add schedule list view, view model. Okay, now here in a models folder I'm just going to add one schedule model and the days model. For here in a UI for schedule list, displaying schedule list, I'm just going to add schedule model, and when I select this dashboard icon, then here I'm displaying days information. So for that I'm going to create model. Okay, so here in a schedule model I'm going to add start date time, then end date time, title, description and the location. And also background color. Okay, so here I'm displaying start date and end date, then title, description and the location. Now let me add days model to display days information on left panel. Okay, so here in the days model I have added day name in a character format because I am displaying here single character of days name, like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So that first character I am displaying here, and that day's particular date I am binding, so that purpose here date property I have added. Now let me just set this schedule list view here in app.cell.yaml. So when the application launch, that time it's just going to display by default this schedule list view. And also here in a schedule list view code behind, I am just going to set this page binding context is equal to our schedule list view model. Okay, now let me create observable collection for this schedule list. So here I'm just going to add observable collection of schedule model, and also I'm going to create one property of a list of schedule model that contain all schedule lists. So I will add all schedule lists in this object, and based on the date selection I will just filter schedule list. In this method, add all schedule list method, I'm just going to add dummy schedule list in this all schedule list object. So let me just add dummy record here. Okay, so here I just created a schedule list object of a new list of schedule, and in that I have added this all dummy record like title, description, start date and date time, and that background color, and that I'm just going to add in this all schedule list object. Now let me create another property of current date. So before that let me install community toolkit.mvvm to easily create I notify property change. I can easily implement using that. So this plugin I am just going to install in this project. Okay, so here I am just going to inherit observable object from the community toolkit.mvvm. Now here I am going to create observable property, that name will be current date. So this date I am displaying here, so whatever the date by default it will display whatever the date is today, that date here I am going to display, and after based on selection it's just going to filter data. Okay, another method I am going to create is bind data to schedule list, and here I will just filter from the all schedule list. I will just filter based on whatever the date is selected. Okay, so here whatever the start date time dot date is equal to current date time dot date, then it is going to filter data based on this condition, and then I will just add that in a okay. Now let me bind this schedule list data here in a schedule list UI. So here first I am going to design this layout. So let me add UI related portion here. So here in a grid vertical stack layout I am going to add grid in a one grid row. I am going to add 2 column. Okay, so in a one row, I'm just going to add first in a first column this icon, and a remaining in a remaining column this data I'm just going to add. So in a sources, I'm just going to set this dashboard black.png icon. Okay, now here in a horizontal stack layout, in this vertical stack layout, I am going to add this date information like Wednesday and this month and year, and then this date picker. So let me add that. So here I need to bind the date. So for that, let me add here first the namespace of ViewModel, so I can set the data type. Okay, now I can bind here current date from this schedule list view model. So let me first set here current date is equal to whatever the today date. So date time dot now, that date I am just going to set here, and let me just now format the date here. So full day name like here I am displaying, so that day name here I am going to bind, and that, and then I'm just going to display month name and year in this format. Okay, and here I'm just going to add now date picker, and that format I'm just going to set this DD, so it's just going to display date in this format. Okay, now let me run the application and let's see it displaying UI in this format or not. Okay, now let me just set hide this navigation bar from this page, and here in a vertical stack layout I'm just going to set padding, and here I'm just going to set vertical option to center, and in that date I'm just going to bind current date. So when we open this date picker, so whatever the current date is available, that is going to display. Now let me add the schedules and box view down to this header. So here in a label I'm just going to add schedule text, and then one box view, okay. So now it's just going to display like this. Okay, now here I'm going to bind data in a collection view. So for that, let me add here collection view and that data template, so we can bind data into collection view. Okay, so here in item source I'm just going to set schedule list, and this schedule list data type will be schedule model. Now here I'm just going to design layout. Okay, so I'm just going to display this date information in a first column, and then in a second column I will just display this frame, and in that this description, location and title information. So let me add that. Okay, so in a first column, first I will just display start date time, and let me just format that date time also. So I'm just going to display in HHMM this format, like hour, minute and that AM PM information. Now in another label I will just display and time information. Okay, now frame I'm just going to add in a grid.column1, and that background color will be the whatever the color we set from this schedule model object that I'm just going to display here. So first I will display title, then description and the location information. Okay, so it displaying like this. Okay. Okay, so now it's displaying. Let me just set text color to white and font size Okay, I have not added any location information, so let me just add here static text. Later on we will add that. Okay, now here based on the date selection, I'm just going to filter this data. So for that, here let me create event on this date picker. Okay, so here in a date selection, date selected, I will create uh, event of date selected, and here I just get first current page view model, and from this schedule list view model I'm just going to call this method bind data to schedule. So let me just convert it to public so I can access it. Now I'm just going to call view model dot bind data to schedule list. So this method, like whatever the date is selected, based on that it's just going to filter data and display in schedule list. Okay, so now here if I select any date, so based on date selection it's just going to filter data. Now let me create panel, like on the click of this image dashboard icon I'm just going to display left panel. So for that let me first add here panel UI. So here I'm just going to add panel left, and that background color, let me just get the background color. And that width request I'm just going to set as 80, and this horizontal option I will just set as a start. Now in this layout I'm going to add first image. That source will be this dashboard white image I'm going to set. Okay, and let me just add margin. And one image at the end of this setting.png. Okay, so now it's displaying here dashboard icon and this setting icon. Now on the click of this icon I will just hide this panel, and on the click of this dashboard icon I will show that panel. So that logic, let me add a tap gesture recognizer on this image. So same tap gesture recognizer I will add for the icon available here in this panel right. Let me add that name. So this is a panel right, and here I have dashboard icon, so same event I will add here also. So I will call same tap gesture recognizer dot tapped event. So here now let me create one property. Okay, so by default I will just translate this panel left to -18. So when the application launch, that time it will not visible that panel. Okay, so now here on the click of this I will just check like is panel translated. So if it is translated, then I will set to again -80 point, and if it is not translated, then I will translate this to 0. So then that panel will be visible here. And this flag, let me just set is panel translated to okay, so if it is true then it become false, and if it is false then it become true, like that. Now let me run the application. So by default this panel is not going to display, as on initialization of this constructor I just translated that panel to left side -18 point, and when I click on that image then it just going to display that. Okay, so here now on the click of panel, when I click this dashboard icon, then it will just check is panel is translated. If it is not, then it will translate to 0 point, means it will set to visible, and again I click on that icon, then it will just translate to -18 point. Okay, now here I am just going to bind weekdays information, so let's add that in a view model. So here I'm just going to create observable collection of weekdays. Okay, so here observable collection of days model. Okay, so here in weekdays I'm just going to add weekdays information. So let me create one method that going to fetch weekdays. So in that, first I'm just going to find start day of week based on the date selection. So if I select here 19, then the start day of week will be the Sunday, and then all weekdays information I'm just going to add in this weekdays observable collection. So let me add that logic. So based on the current date, I'm just going to fetch so first day of week minus current date dot day of week. So it will fetch start day of week, this logic. Now from the start day of week to end day of week, I am just going to add this entire date collection in day of week of this day of weekdays observable collection. So let me just use for loop, and in that I will just create an object of type of days model. So here I need to pass day name. So day name will be the type of character. So for that I need to fetch now single character from the start day of week dot day of week. So day of week object, if you see, it's a returning index, so 0 1 2 3. So based on index I will return single character. So let me create one method. Okay, so based on index I will just return data. And if this condition is not matched, then I just return empty. So here I will call now days day of week care method, and in that I will just pass start day of week dot day of week information. Now in a date I will just set start day of week dot date. Now this record I will add in weekdays object. Okay, and after that start day of week equal to start day of week dot add days. I will just add one day, because if I select here 12 date, then start date of week will be the 9, and from the 9 I need to add entire date range collection in this object. So that purpose here I have added this logic, and here I will just set weekdays dot clear. So whenever this method call, it's just going to refresh the data. Now this method I will call here whenever the date change, whenever this bind to schedule list method is called. In that condition I will just call this get weekdays info. Okay, now let me bind this information into UI. Okay, so here in a schedule list view, in a panel left, I'm going to add here collection view, and that item source will be the weekdays. Okay, so for this design I am going to add a border, and in that one label I am going to display. So let me add that. And that border shape I will just set to round rectangle. Okay, now that border background color, let me just set that. Now let me run the app and let's see if displaying weekdays in a border or not. Okay, so it's displaying weekdays. Now let me just format this. Okay, now here in a weekdays model I am going to add one property called is selected. So when I select any days from here, it's going to filter this schedule list also. So for that, in a weekdays model object, let me create one property called is selected. So here I'm going to inherit observable object, and observable property I'm going to create here, that is selected. Now here in a schedule list UI I will set trigger information. So if is selected is true, then here I will just set background color to orange, otherwise this black color that I have added here, that I am just going to set. Let me create here command also. On the tab of this grid I am just going to invoke command from the schedule list view model. So here part will be the command name that I am going to create in a view model, and command parameter will be the current selected item. Okay, so here now in a schedule list view model I am just going to create one command. So that will be the type of days model, as here I specified this weekdays observable collection is the type of days model, so that I am just going to access. Now here current date I will set as whatever the date I selected from this days model, and item dot is selected I will set as a true, and other all item from weekdays object I will set as a false. And then I will just call this bind data to schedule list method, so it's just going to bind data to schedule list. Now let me run the application and let's see. Okay, so it's throwing error here in a parsing. Let me just see. Yeah, okay, I need to specify this weekday selected command here in a part option, and also here in a bind data to schedule list I need to set now in a weekdays info method is selected is equal to so start day of week dot date is equal to current date dot date, then it just going to set is selected to true. Now let me run the application. Okay, so now if you see by default it's selected as a Monday because current date is a 10. So from this current week information, so start date will be the 9, and from this for each loop I just added this condition: if the start day of week dot date is equal to current date dot date, and it just set as a select as a true. Now let me just select another day, like if I select Tuesday, then it will change the date and bind data here, and on the Wednesday, so it's based on that it will just select. Now let me add another layout here I am displaying. So on the selection of that I am just displaying a little border here like that way. Let me add that. So here in a schedule list I am just going to add another border here, and that will be only visible when is selected property is true. And that border rotation I will just set, because this is by default this is a rectangle type, so I will just set this rotation, and that stroke thickness okay. Now here in a margin I'm just going to set negative left side margin, so it's just going to move like this way. Okay, now here on the selection it will look like this. Okay, let me add here activity indicator on before like a collection view here in a schedule list UI. So when the data is binding, that time it's just going to display activity indicator. So here in is visible property, let me create one bindable property here in a schedule list view model. So when the data is binding, that time this is busy property will become true. So here in a bind schedule list I'm just going to add delay. Like a 4 or 500 second, then I just fed the schedule list data, and then I will just add that in a UI. And once the data is added, then I will again set is busy to false, and that flag I am just going to set here. Okay, now let me run the application and let's see it displaying activity indicator when the data is binding. Okay, so here it's displaying activity indicator, and when I select any days, that time it's just displaying activity indicator and then binding the data. And from here also if I select any days, then it's just filtering data. Now let me run this in a Windows platform and let's see if it's working or not. Okay, so it's displaying a schedule list, but this icon is not visible because here this background color is black. So let me use here app theme binding, and for a dark theme I will just set dashboard white color, white background image. So now it will be visible. So if I select any days, then it just going to filter data, and from here on calendar selection it's just going to also like based on date selection, it's just going to display the data. Okay, so that's all for today. I hope you like this video, and thank you so much for watching it.